Alright, so Day of the Dead. I have not watched any of the Living Dead movies. Well, shit. Okay. I haven't watched Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, or Day of the Dead. I've watched the Dawn of the Dead remake, and I've seen a lot of parts of the Day of the Dead, so I knew what I was getting into. And I knew how great the special effects was, which you're going to hear me talking about. With Day of the Dead, I was like, it was on, I forget where I watched it. I think I rented it, actually, yeah. I just saw it was available, and I'm like, I know this movie's gory, and I just want to watch some good special effects, like some really messed up stuff. And it's pretty good. I like Day of the Dead a lot. It's one of those things that I do like the main woman a lot, like the main female protagonist. Like, she's very, I mean, for an 80s female protagonist, like, she is powerful. Like, she is handled just as well as, like, any normal protagonist in anything, which I love. So she's great. A lot of the side characters I didn't love, but it's very one of those things that it is a product of its time. So it's in the 80s, dealing with it's not dealing with the Cold War, but in the time of the Cold War where it's like the end can come at any moment. It's very much a product of its time. In the 80s, you know, is one of those times where dark political stuff was happening, like Russia versus US, like spies, all that weird shit was happening. And, you know, just like tension was so high in the 80s towards at a certain point, which I didn't live through it, but one of those things you hear about it and you see this and you're like, oh, I get it exactly. Day of the Dead is basically what might be the last group of survivors on the planet. You do not know, but they're like some of the last survivors of the military and like some of the science crews of the U.S. government, and they're just trying to find a cure for this virus. And just tensions are boiling. Like, the military is tired of being there, and the scientists are like, no, we need to find a cure. And it's them combating, and it just gets crazy. It's probably what I would argue like Savini's greatest work. Tom Savini is like a makeup effects like magician is what I would call him. Like, he is insane at what he does. And the stuff he does here, I don't even know how he does it. Like, people are getting ripped up apart and they're still talking. Like, at a certain point, like, it's just so grimy, and it's so, like, I watch Day of the Dead. Just watch it. I do need to watch Dawn of the Dead, and I need to watch the original Night of the Living Dead. And you'll see in a little bit why I have to say not of the Living Dead movies, because it gets confusing. Day of the Dead's a great movie. It's a great movie. I would go A tier. I wish I liked its characters a little bit more. If I liked its characters a little bit more, I'd probably go S. But a lot of its side characters didn't really work for me. I just loved its score, and I was just kind of invested in like what's going to happen. Like, just tension is so high in it. And the villain is fantastic. Love the villain. So next one is a personal favorite of mine. I watched this movie growing up. It's The Faculty, and it is directed by Robert Rodriguez, and it's a Kevin Williamson pen script who did Scream. So it's very much like, the characters know what kind of experience they're in, which that's one thing I get kind of tired. Like, it very rarely comes up in horror movies for me. Like, I'm like, I hate this, like, just automatically because they don't do it. But if you're in a horror movie, you should at least acknowledge, hey, horror movies exist. These people know what these type of situations are. Like, if zombies pop up, people are going to be like, oh yeah, I know zombies from zombie media. Duh. So The Faculty is very much one of those. It's basically Invasion of the Body Snatchers in a high school. And it is just great. It's a lot of fun. It's just like the perfect like amount of like late 90s, early 2000s nostalgia for me. I'm going to put it in S tier. Like, it's a personal favorite of mine. It's got a lot of people's like start in this movie. I love Robert Rodriguez. It's got some great gore. Some of the practical effects in it are fantastic. Like, really great. Jon Stewart's, there's so many things I want to talk about The Faculty. I love The Faculty. It's so good. Watch The Faculty if you haven't seen it. Just watch it. Next one is another one that I've heard a lot about over the years. I've never watched it, and I finally watched it, and I love it. So good. Another one that everyone should watch. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to throw it up an S tier. Return of the Living Dead. This is one of the only movies on this list to actually genuinely scare me. And it's not really trying to be scary. It's technically a horror comedy. The zombies in this movie are just scary. They run. This is a movie that came out in the 80s. So, rewind a little bit. So, after Night of the Living Dead, that was a co-production by George Romero and I can't remember his name. I'm going to put it up here. Here. I'm going to put his name up here. It was a co-production between the two of them, and they split apart. Basically, the other guy got ownership of the Living Dead name, while George Romero got to make Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and everything from there. So the movie he made afterwards was Return of the Living Dead. The other guy, this guy. It's so weird because it started so much zombie lore, so much. Like, it really did. Like, everyone should watch this. Like, even if you're tired of zombies, because it's weird, it's wild, it's got such great practical effects. Like, it's a lot of fun, and it's scary. Like, the zombies in it can even talk. The most famous line from it probably is, like, after a crew of paramedics gets attacked, like, a zombie comes over to the, like, intercom, and he's, like, trying to talk to the dispatcher, and he's like, they're asking, do you need any help? And he said, just send more paramedics. And, like, I'm going to put the clip up here, too. Yeah, I'm putting the clip up here.
In dispatch, send more paramedics.
It's great. Like, watch Return of the Living Dead. Whenever I got done watching that with my friends, I was leaving out to my car, and it was nighttime, and I was actually, like, kind of spooked a little bit. It's a lot of fun. It's like really 80s. It's very punk rock. It's a lot of fun. This is a very underrated movie that not everyone needs to watch. Not everybody's gonna like it. At one point, a character strips naked in a cemetery and just dances around. Like, it's weird. It's weird, but it's Linnea Quigley, and she always does that. So we'll move ahead. Next movie I watched was Phantasm. I watched Return of the Living Dead rented. In Faculty, I have the Blu-ray of. Done. Out of the way. Let's get into Phantasm. Phantasm is a movie my dad actually likes a lot. Phantasm is about a guy named the Tall Man. He's a mortician, and I'll say the plot. Yeah, it's a man named the Tall Man who's a mortician who's an alien. So he is stealing bodies from this mortuary he hosts, and he's sending them to this alien planet to be slaves, I think. But the dead people are little bitty dwarves who look like Jawas, who he sends out to do his bidding in the real world too. I don't know, it makes no sense. It's very dreamlike, very, very dreamlike. It's got like a little bitty ball with the two spikes, if you ever seen that, where it just goes flying around and stuff. It's got some good effects in it. Whenever I initially watched it, I was like, man, I just do not understand why people love this. It did not do a lot for me. Eventually I found out that it just had a really low budget, and like it kind of holds it up a little bit more in my eyes, but I wouldn't really recommend it. It's not scary. Like, I was even giving it my full attention, and it's just not scary. But because of the limited budget, and like it does have some great practical effects, probably do see. So we're going to talk about Books of Blood. That is on Hulu, and it is a Hulu original. It's not good. It's a horror anthology. It's got 3 different stories. There's not a lot to say about it. I actually like the first one, but then it's pretty middling. It's just not even good kills, man. Not a lot to say about it. I'm gonna go D. Just gonna go D. It's not great. No. Don't watch this. Do not watch this. It's not good. I saw Clive Barker's name on it, so I'm like, oh, it's gonna at least have good gore or kills or be weird, and it's barely any of those. So no. Next one, watch Gremlins with some friends. Gremlins is a great movie still. It is another weird one. It's got flashing gremlins. It's got gremlins who are shooting guns. This is a movie that I would recommend to basically anyone. Like, it's a fun 80s movie. It's Christmassy. It's all hell. Like, if you love Christmas, watch Gremlins. Like, there's nothing really I can say about Gremlins that people don't already know. It's great. I would go A tier with it. I'm kind of bummed I didn't get to watch Gremlins 2 as a part of this, because I think I like Gremlins 2 more. But Gremlins 1, it's fine. Some great effects in it, but also some bad effects. Some really good effects, like really messed up for a PG movie, but I grew up watching it. There's not a lot to say about Gremlins except that if you haven't seen Gremlins, you should watch Gremlins. So after Gremlins, I watched The Cleansing Hour. So after Gremlins, I watched a movie called The Cleansing Hour on Shudder. I saw this on Shudder initially, and I was like, I don't know, this could be terrible or it could be okay. I don't know. Just the premise sounded interesting enough that I decided to check it out. The premise is that it's about a webcast where it's this group of people that are acting like they're doing exorcisms that are actually fake, and they're like, selling merch off of it. Like, it's pretty hokey what they're doing, but I actually like that aspect of it. And then they eventually find their way into a real exorcism. and shit gets weird. It's a movie that I was like, at the very least, that sounds like a dumb, hokey, not a dumb, hokey premise, but at least a premise that I could see like a just terrible looking sci-fi movie having. Like, when I say sci-fi, I meant sci-fi, S-Y-F-Y. But it was one of those things that I'm like, oh, you could find a movie like this anywhere, but I'll give it a shot. And I actually liked it quite a bit. Like, I would recommend this to most people, in honesty. The budget on it's good. I like not all the characters, but most of the characters. Like, the 3 main characters, I like. And the acting's good in it. The special effects are kind of iffy at spots, but there's some great practical stuff in here at times. But I was actually invested. Like, it focuses in on, like, basically 2 friends. One guy is like the kind of production side, and the other guy is like the main actor. He acts like he's a priest, and he looks like Jesus kind of, and he's like selling merch off of it and everything. But it like analyzes both of them and like really zeroes in on their personalities and characteristics. By the end of it, I was actually genuinely interested in their characters, and I actually cared about them. To where this is one I would definitely recommend to people. Definitely, I would go A. Yeah, I would go A, because I genuinely liked his character. Some of the special effects aren't great, as I mentioned, but when it comes to like, I like the characters, I was invested in the story, and then there's some great practical effects throughout. It worked. I would recommend this to a lot of people, especially because a lot of people probably haven't heard of it. But it's on Shudder. Definitely give this a watch. Next one is another Shudder original. It is the Mortuary Collection. It's another horror anthology, and I think it's my favorite of all the ones that I watch this Ween watch. Yeah, I'm looking through these. Yeah, this is my favorite of all of them. It's great. Like, it's a lot of fun. It's got such a good sense of style. Very like 60s tinged aesthetics mixed with like very, I don't want to say Cthulhian, but like that, whenever you think of Cthulhu, you think of like greens and blues and like old looking environments, but it's like 60s combined with that. The music in it is great. They actually made original music for it, and all the music works great. Like, and the actual anthology stories within, most of them are fantastic. They're really good, and most of the time they're just really funny. Like, it just works, like, on horror level and that. It's not especially scary, but when it comes to horror anthologies, it's definitely the best one I watched this Ween watch. It's one of those movies that I hope doesn't get overshadowed, because it's very good. I like the stories. But when it comes to the movies I'll watch for Ween Watch, like in regards to horror anthologies, it's fantastic. Like, it really is. As I mentioned, I love the stories within. The actual, like, overarching story is pretty good. Like, it could be hokey in the end because, like, the special effects, similar to The Cleansing Hour, are not great. But it's got a budget. You can tell, and it's enjoyable. Like, this is one of those I would recommend to almost anyone, because the stories are horror tinged enough, but most of the time they're kind of jokey, and they're very rarely that scary. But I would recommend it to almost anybody, so I would go A. Like, it's a very good one. Like, definitely, if you have Shudder, check out The Cleansing Hour and Mortuary Collection. Both great. So, after that, I did finally watch Get Out. Get Out's a movie I never watched. It never came up. I didn't see it in theaters. It was to the point where I, eventually was like, okay, I got to see what this movie's about. And I read about it and, probably spoiled myself on a lot of things, but not everything, actually. But I just never checked it out. And it was one of those things that I wanted to check out Us also, but I was like, well, I need to check out Get Out first. So as part of this Ween watch, I checked it out with one of my friends, and I really liked it. It's not enough of a horror movie for my liking. Like, it starts off very kind of like weird and horror-y and like Wicker Man-esque, of just like a weird society kind of thing. My main disappointment in it is that when it comes to the end and like things like, at the very least, when things kind of get violent, it's not shown to the full extent a lot of times. And I was like, that's kind of lame a little bit. But as a thriller, it is fantastic. I love what it does visually. Like, it would be so easy for this movie to be a comedy, first and foremost. It'd be so easy. I mean, Jordan Peele wrote and directed it. It'd be so easy for him to just be like, oh, no, I made a vaguely horror-ish comedy. But it's a thriller, first and foremost, I'd argue, with comedy elements and occasional horror elements. But, like, I like what it says. I like its message. I like its themes. I really like it overall. It's just, I wish, if you're going to go into the horror territory, I want you to stick with it. So, I would probably go A overall. Like, you can tell why Jordan Peele has had such a fantastic career since then, because I mean, everything from the writing to the visuals to just everything about it. You can tell he is a genius. Clearly, like, it's insane that he did that, but he did it, you know. So we'll move ahead. Oh, next movie is Bad Moon. I'm not gonna say anything about this one because it's the worst one I watched. You know, I said Witchboard was worse. No, Bad Moon's worse. I like werewolf movies a lot, so you'll notice there's a couple of werewolf movies past this point. So I was like, you know, I want to watch more werewolf movies. It's basically a story which you'd think this sounds interesting. It's not. Or at least the movie does not know how to handle it. It's basically like an uncle comes back into a family's life, and it seems like he's a werewolf. So you would think with that premise that things would either, like, you'd at least get invested in the mystery, or you'd be invested in, like, the characters, like, what are they going to do with this situation, what's going to happen. I wasn't. The only thing I'll give it is that when it comes to the actual werewolf, like, he causes destruction. Like, he will swipe people, and, like, their, like, hands are getting chopped off, and, like, their fingers are getting split in half, and, like, clearly shows that a werewolf, like, if he slashes you with his claws, you're getting messed up. I do like that, but the transformation sucks. God, their transformation is completely CG and, like, from 95 with a low budget. It looks terrible. It's nothing but CG. I don't want to say anything else about it. It's a bad movie. Bad movie. Moving on. I watched that on Prime, but what does that matter? What does it matter? Oh, and Get Out, I just watched on Blu-ray, I think. Next movie is Brain Damage. So this is a fun one. So this is from the director of Basket Case, which is a movie I'm disappointed I didn't actually watch later on afterwards. I'm not going to say anything about Basket Case. If you're a horror aficionado, you know Basket Case. You've seen something from it, so you can kind of know what to expect. Brain Damage is about a guy who gets a parasitic alien attached to him who just gives him injections of a drug that makes him hallucinate, and he gets addicted to it. And just weird body horror stuff happens afterwards. The thing, I mean, this is one of those movies that, like, this is my favorite type of horror movies. I don't love this movie, but when it comes to just weird shit, weird gore, just, like, good practical effects, like, just very weird, I don't know, it's just weird. If you're looking for something, like, weird and just, like, you want something, I don't know, like, goopy, that's jokey, and I don't know, it's weird, man. It's a weird movie. I want to say more about it, but I can't really. If you have any interest in, like, just a weird 80s, not even really a horror movie, just a movie about a parasitic alien who gives this guy hallucinations and then eventually needs to eat brains, you should watch it. I would go B. It was fun. It was fun. Like, I don't really get the ending, but hey, it's fun. Next movie is a werewolf movie. It's Late Phases. This premise is fantastic, so I'm going to just lay it out here. So this movie is about a blind war vet who goes to a retirement community, and it turns out there's a werewolf there. So he decides to wage war against this werewolf. And it does well by that premise. It does great character work with its characters, like really good stuff. I like all the acting. The practical effects, again, like, I know I've talked a lot about practical effects, are really good in this. Especially the transformation. The transformation in this movie is one of the best I've seen. It really is. Like, I would recommend this movie to a lot of people, because I feel like it didn't give enough credit. It came out in, like, 2014, but you don't hear a lot of people talking about it. I did watch it on Prime, but I don't really want to say anything else about it. It's a really good movie. Like, it's not particularly scary, but when it comes to, like, just if you want a good werewolf movie, it's pretty good. I don't like its, like, final battle type thing that much, but everything leading up to it was fantastic. Like, it's just really good. Really good. I'm gonna go A. Victor Crowley. Victor. So this movie, oh man, this movie. This is I'm thinking I want to watch this movie every Halloween. Every October, at least. Victor Crowley. I watched this movie with some of my friends last year, and this movie blew us away. Like, I don't think they knew, but I knew the Hatchet movies. I knew what they do. Like, they're all about, like, being, like, kind of in-jokey, but mainly, like, just cheesy and just, like, characters you kind of hate, like, low-budgety, but, like, great practical effects. Kane Hodder plays Victor Crowley himself, and, like, the practical effects in this just are over the top and gory, and it's just fantastic. Like, if you want to watch something that's, like, someone gets punched in the face and their head goes flying off and blood splurting everywhere, that's Victor Crowley. Victor Crowley is amazing. It's really good. I'm gonna put up an S tier. I'm gonna tell you something about it. So, We watched it last year, and there's so many things. I mean, it's got one of the best kills I've ever seen that I'm not even going to spoil for you, but it's just amazing. But there's one thing about it. So in this movie, there's a book signing, and everyone hates the guy who's signing these books, kind of. One woman comes up and she's like, "Oh, can you sign my breast?" And he's like, "Oh, okay." You know, he's a little bit flustered, and he's like, "Okay, I'll sign it." The next guy comes up, he unzips his pants, he pulls his dick and balls out, and he says, "Can you sign my penis?" And when we watched it last year, I know this is probably a lot for this video. You might not be expecting me to go fully in the story, but I'm going because this story is important. So last year when we watched it, I mean, you see everything. And you see his balls breathe. His balls, like, flex on him. It's insane. Like, but the thing is, when we watched it this year, we watched it with more friends. And we wanted to show them Victor Crowley. We wanted to show them Victor Crowley, the deaths, and the ball breathing. It had Victor Crowley, it had the deaths, no more ball breathing. They took it out. They took out the ball breathing. I think it's on, if you have the Shudder app, like if you pay for Shudder directly, if you don't do it through Amazon Prime or anything, you can see the full extent of Victor Crowley. But Victor Crowley is like comfort food for me for Halloween. It really is. I think I'm going to watch it every year with the same group of friends because it's just so much fun. And I really want to see what Adam Green, the director, does next. Like, it's great. But it is on Shudder. I don't know if it's on Shudder through Prime. That's what I have. I think it's at very least on Prime and HBO Max and stuff. And oh, it's not on HBO Max anymore. That's what we watched it on last year. So next one is the only other movie on this list to really actually scare me. This movie made me like tense up. Like, this was a tense experience. It's Host on Shudder. This is a movie that, if you could handle it, I would recommend to anyone into horror movies. Like, it is so good for what it is. It's an hour long, but it feels like a full-length movie. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is short or anything. It works perfect. And what it is something simple. It's basically, it's people during quarantine, because it was filmed during this actual quarantine, and I guess written during this actual quarantine, and it comments on it and everything. It's great. A group of friends who are doing a Zoom call are performing an online seance with the demons. Like, they hire someone and shit gets wild. Like, it's great. Like, this movie is fantastic. It really is. And it's only an hour long, so this is like the perfect Halloween fare. Like, this is a movie, like, if someone asked me, what should I watch if I wanted to be scared on Halloween night, I would recommend Host on Shudder. Out of this whole list, I would recommend Host on Shudder. It is great. I put it in S tier. I watched this movie twice. I watched it once by myself, then I watched it with friends later on. Like, it is just so good. Definitely watch this movie. It's a great one. Next up is Wolf of Snow Hollow. So this is the last werewolf movie I watched on this list. Yeah, this is the last one. This is a recent one, so I did rent this. It's starring and written and directed by Jim Cummings. He directed Thunder Road. I think it came out a couple years ago, but I heard great things about it. I do still want to see it. I haven't seen it. I heard this movie was good, and I heard he did all that, wrote, directed, and produced this too. Or not, starred in it, sorry. I heard all those things, so I was like, okay, werewolf movie, I'm in. So I haven't even seen a trailer of it before I watched it. So I watched it. It is more of a comedy and kind of character drama than an actual horror movie, but it does pretty well by its horror elements, in all honesty. And it's a pretty good character drama. Like, I like the main character. Like, I was invested. It's pretty enjoyable. It's not spooky. It's not very Halloween-y. It's not. So if you're looking for something of that fare, or if you're even wanting a classic werewolf movie, like the same tropes of a werewolf movie, like kind of comfort food, it's not that either. But it's enjoyable. I like it. I don't really want to say a lot about it because it came out so recently, but it's good. I would put it in B tier. I didn't love it. It lost my interest a couple times. I think it has some tonal problems. Like, at the beginning, it starts off like pretty serious, and then eventually it just goes off the rails, and like the main Jim Cummings is great in this movie. That's all I'll say. I don't know. It's great. You should watch it. Next one up is a movie that I actually watched as a kid a lot, which I probably shouldn't have watched this one either, is Waxwork. I watched this on Prime with a group of friends who never even heard of this movie, and I'd been pushing, let's watch Waxwork, because I knew where this movie ends up. This movie has one of the wildest climaxes I've ever seen. I'm going to even show it here. I'm just cutting this off. Here, just watch this 5 seconds. Like, it's so good. Here, just watch this.
Quick, he's changing! my day.
That's what you can expect from Waxwork. And it's got great practical effects. It is mainly like, a comedy, and at times like it does go on long. Like it's kind of actually like a anthology movie in a way, because all these different stories of like, it's what it basically is that this group of friends go to a waxwork, and when they get close to these wax basically pieces, they get sucked into them. So like one person will get sucked into a like vampire movie, one person will get sucked into a werewolf movie. Effects in it are great. It's very gory, it's very cheesy, it's very 80s, it's jokey, it's comedic, it's just over the top, and I love it. It's a guilty pleasure for me, and we had a lot of fun with this. So if you have a group of friends and you just want to watch something dumb, over the top and gory and kind of cheesy, definitely do Waxwork. I'm gonna go with A. That clip I showed alone probably sold you on it. So next one up is not my favorite. I watched it with a group of friends also. It is called All Hallows Eve. It is technically like the first appearance of the Terrifier. There's a movie called The Terrifier that you might have seen. It's basically like a kind of grindhousey, it's a modern day movie, but like it's very grindhouse focused, extremely gory, mean-spirited type of horror movie. And All Hallows Eve came up and we watched it, and I kind of like how dreamlike it is. Kind of an anthology horror movie in itself, because it's like technically all these different stories, but they all have the same kind of, the Terrifier is the villain in all of them. But just overall, I was just kind of like, the gore effects aren't great, because you can tell it has a very low budget, and the acting is terrible, and I don't think that's on purpose. It's just, overall, did not love it. I'm going to go D. It's not the worst movie I watched, by far. It's probably one of the best of all these D movies, I would say. Yeah, I'd say it's probably the best of all these D movies, but in honesty, I just don't like how mean-spirited those movies are. It's just very much like the type where it feels like normal people in a situation, and it's just like treating them like shit, like really just mean. But it's not the worst one of all these. Next one up is Wishmaster 2. The Wishmaster series, I've not seen all of them. It's one of those series that I grew up, I would watch it on the Sci-Fi network. At that time it was Sci-Fi, but it's Sci-Fi now. Basically follows a genie who is evil, and to get his powers back, he has to take people's souls, and to get their souls, he has to get a wish from them. So it's people wishing like, this is the only one I can remember, so I'm just gonna say it because this is something that happens in Wishmaster 2. God, I shouldn't. This is the only one I can remember. I can't remember anything Wishmaster 1, so I'm just gonna say what happens in Wishmaster 2. A guy is in jail. He goes to jail. This genie goes to jail, and like he's just getting so many souls because people just have tons of wishes in jail. Like I want to get out. I want this guy to get screwed over. I want cigarettes, whatever. One guy's like, oh, I got unlawfully put into prison because my lawyer is an asshole. I wish he'd go fuck himself. Well, yeah, so give it a C. Wishmaster 1's better. Just watch Wishmaster 1. It's very weird, body horror stuff. Those movies are weird. They're weird. If you want something weird and, just very gory, very cheesy, 90s, 80s horror stuff, it's good for that. Next one is Evil Dead Remake. This is actually the only Evil Dead movie I've watched, which I know might make people hate me, which I do need to eventually watch all the Evil Deads again. I need to watch all the Evil Deads. Not even again. I know what happens in them, and I know I've seen like half of Evil Dead 2, but I do need to watch them. This Evil Dead Remake, I've never sat through, but I've seen like a lot of the kills. I've seen how gory it is. I've seen all that, because just what they do with their gore is insane. Like, that's what this movie's known for. It's insane. It's not the scariest movie, but gore-wise, it's just insane what they do. Like, it's brutal. It's brutal. Like, I definitely would not recommend this movie to everybody. Very torture porny, but like not to the level of like Hostel or anything, like where it's reveling in it. And it's like, it's got some imagery in it that's pretty haunting. Like, it's good. So I would probably give this a B, because I feel like they could have done a better job with the characters. I feel like they get into the shit way too quick. That's the one thing I was noticing, like actually watching this. I'm just like, oh, they're already in this bad stuff? Okay. Because I felt like I had barely gotten a chance to know any of the characters. I do like the premise a lot of like, them trying to perform like an intervention, or like, sobering up one of their friends who's addicted to like, they don't say what it is, but it's probably heroin. She's addicted to like a substance, and they're taking to her cabin, a group of friends and her taking to her cabin to like basically just clean her up. Like, just, you can't be around society, you don't have any draws to do this drug, and move on from there. But that's about it. It's fine. I enjoyed it. Next movie up is a Hulu original, but it technically, I mean, it's not like Hulu paid for it. Hulu just bought the rights for it. It came out last year. It's a movie from the director of Dear White People. It's called Bad Hair. It's about a evil weave. This is a movie that I heard was good, and I thought the premise sounded like, well, that's not something I've seen in a horror movie. So I decided to watch it, and it's okay. It's not great. I'm sure, you know, if I was a black woman, like, I probably would have gotten a lot more of a message from it. Like, I do think the first half is awesome. Like, the first half is very good. They nail everything they should be nailing, they're nailing. Like, the characters, the story, like, you can kind of start to see the art come into focus. When they actually put the weave in her hair, is just horrifying. Like, ugh, it just gave me the heebie-jeebies. It's good. It's good. But whenever it comes to the end and it gets, like, very horror-focused, it doesn't do that well. It just doesn't. And that's a bummer. Like, it's the same thing of what I was talking about earlier, which this is pegged as a horror comedy, so I won't necessarily do this as a big detriment, but similar to Get Out, whenever it starts getting into its, like, pretty severe horror moments in the end, which this goes definitely more in the horror line than Get Out. Well, Get Out's more like just a thriller in its ending. Bad Hair is like, you know, the weave is going crazy. Weave's going crazy. It wasn't horror enough for me. And that's one of the complaints I always have. Like, if you can make a horror comedy and, like, really go out, and I don't mean necessarily with the horror, like, you don't need to have jump scares and stuff like that, but at the very least you could go like, oh no, horrific stuff is happening right now, instead of just being jokey about it. But it's not bad. I would give it a B. Like, it's one of those, it's a pretty unique horror movie, and it's got a unique perspective, similar to Get Out. It's not something you see very often. So, I liked it. Next movie up is The Lighthouse. Lighthouse is a movie that I did not see when it came out, but as soon as I saw that scene with Willem Dafoe saying, "Don't you like me, lobster?" to Robert Pattinson, and, like, really selling that line, I was like, I have to watch this, because it was just so hilarious. Him begging, like, "Don't you like me, lobster?" It's so great. Like, here it is. Here. God, I need to get better at this, but here it is. Yeah.
You're fond of me lobster, ain't you?
Drunken in a Virginia fence.
I seen it. You're fond of me lobster. Say it. Say it. Say it.
I don't have to say nothing.
Danny!
That's such a great scene. God, it's so good. So I decided to sit down and watch this Ween Watch 2020 viewing. And I like it. It's good. I've definitely was way more into the first half than the second half. Like, getting to know the characters, figuring out their dynamic and stuff. But whenever things just start to go like, oh, they're losing their mind, which is, you know, it's just about two people in a lighthouse who, you know, they spend so long there, they start to lose their minds. Which there's a lot more subtext and everything else, which I'm starting to look into now, but at the time I was just like, I don't see any of that. Like, I understand some of the Greek mythology stuff interspersed in regards to Prometheus and stuff, which I'm not going to go into all that now, but I just kind of started to lose interest when it's just like, oh, this is all it is. I was just hoping more of the weird stuff. The thing I will give this is that this is a beautiful movie. Robert Eggers his direction in this is fantastic. Like, I was just getting absorbed in just the visuals. Like, I would have loved to see this in theaters. And it's a bummer I didn't. Like, that's the best thing about it. I thought I would come away like, oh, you know, slow shots on this and that. Like, that's usually not my thing. But, man, it's just a beautiful movie. Like, and it's black and white. And it's great. But probably go B, in all honesty. I was really into the first half. It probably would have been higher. It definitely would have been higher if it nailed its ending. And nailed the second half, but I just kind of started to lose interest when it just got really like, oh, they're just losing their minds. Okay. So for the final bit here, I had, which I had been watching them throughout Ween Watch, but I decided to do them all at the end of putting them here. I watched Nightmare 1 through 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I love the Nightmare series. Well, I love Nightmare 1 primarily. Nightmare 1 is like maybe my favorite slasher. Maybe Scream potentially could be. There's like a couple ones that I might put it, you know, instead. Like a Thing I would technically say is a slasher. But I love Nightmare 1. It was always the scariest idea to me because there's no way to win. Eventually you have to go to sleep. Like, in regards to like Jason or Michael Myers, like, theoretically you could blow them up. Theoretically you could do all these things. What can you do to Freddy? Like, you have to sleep eventually, and that's where he's powerful. Like, you're fucked, you know? So Nightmare 1 always freaked me out. And it's a genuinely scary movie. I love its dreamlike stuff. I love, like, the weird... everyone should watch Nightmare 1. I love its body, like, gore stuff. It's just, it's so good. Like, it still holds up. The only thing I don't like is how it wraps up in regards to, like, its, you know, the ending. I don't have a problem with the effects in the ending, if you know what I'm talking about. Like, you know, someone getting grabbed through a window and looking like a mannequin. Fine. I love that. That's great. That's fantastic. It's like that ending and like how it's resolved beforehand. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But I love this movie. It's a classic. It's going in S tier. Next one up is Nightmare on Elm Street 2. This is a very gay movie. That's what this movie is known for at this point. It's very gay. Very gay. That's about most of what it has going for it, because it just doesn't make a lot of sense in regards to the Nightmare series and in general. Like, it's very dreamlike in itself, but like it just feels like a different movie they turned into a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. My favorite stuff about it is like the body horror stuff. People like splitting and coming out of someone else's body, like lifting up their head and like showing their brain, like dog faces. Like, hopefully I can find pictures of the dog face and I'll show you. It's weird. I like how just weird this movie is. You know? That's what it has going for it. It's just weird. But other than that, it's not great. Like, I feel like it's held to a unreasonable like level because of how gay it is, which that's fine, you know. It's inventive, like, especially for an 80s movie, of how gay it really is. But in regards to an actual movie, it's not good. So I'd probably go C. It's just got some great effects in it. It really does. Nightmare 3 is obviously the second best in the series. I have never been the biggest fan of Nightmare 3. Like, obviously, you know, in regards to the rest of the series, it's the second best, but I always have liked the first one more. Like, Nightmare 3, to me, has always been, like, some great deaths, but it felt like a little bit, I don't know, it felt like a little bit much in regards to everything, the lore and everything. But it does have some great deaths, and it's got some great effects, like great effects that I even forgot about watching at this time. Like when Freddy is a snake and he's like eating Kristen, like that's so, it's so disgusting, But it works. Like overall, this movie works. It's a good horror movie. I would give it A tier. Like I definitely like it a lot more in my mind. Definitely like it a lot more. But yeah, it's not better than Nightmare 1. It's not. So last up is Nightmare 4. This was the last movie I watched as part of this whole Ween watch. It's not very good. It's not very good. It starts off good. Well, hold on. It falls into the trope of that I don't like of horror movies, of which I'm just going to say it's an old movie. It's fine. It kills off basically all the remaining characters of Nightmare 30 at the very beginning. Don't love that. It's just pretty mean-spirited. Then, like, it focuses on new characters that I kind of like at first, but then whenever it starts, like, killing these new characters off, it's just, like, constantly. Like, it's non-stop at that point. And then the deaths can be, some are sometimes great. There's one of the best deaths in the whole series in this one. I mean, it's the bug death. I gotta say it. Yeah, the bug death is just fantastic. God, the effects in this. Oof. But, like, just by the end of it, I didn't like the characters. Alice is okay. She's the new protagonist, which I'm kind of bummed I didn't get a chance to watch Nightmare 5 to see how that compared to everything. But, yeah, Nightmare 4 is not great. I would probably go... man, it's that bug death, though. I'm giving it for C for only that bug death. That bug death, amazing. Screaming Mad George. Society... watch Society, too. This Screaming Mad George's work. So good. And that's Ween Watch. That's Ween Watch. Izzy's gone. She got spooked. But yeah, that's Ween Watch. Everyone should watch 31 horror movies a year. Everyone. I love this. I'm bummed that I didn't get a chance to watch more. I wanted to watch more series. I wanted to watch more of that, but that's for next year. But thank you for watching this video. That's Ween Watch. Check out some of these movies, especially those S tier. Check out those S tier, man. Those are great. If you've never seen them, especially Victor Crowley. Love me some Victor. Love me some Victor. But, yeah. So, thank you for watching this. I'm going to go look at the election results and hopefully not kill myself. Hopefully not. But hey, we'll see.